And obviously from there on, you got the position as leader at the BBC Symphony Orchestra, which is obviously another huge deal. I mean,
Yeah.
how was that in terms of that position as well? Was that the similar sort of position with the LPO in terms of you sort of position available and you went for it, or was that a different situation for you?
Um, no, I mean pretty much the same thing. I mean, with any of those jobs, you have to audition. Although I didn't audition for the BBC, but
I
for
didn't.
the
Okay.
LPO, I did audition, and then you have a trial period, and they check and see whether they want you or not.
Hmm. Now, were these positions always like a dream of yours to lead such a prestigious orchestra? Was that always a dream of yours to do that?
No, not in the slightest. I um, when I when I left music college, I had a string quartet, and that's what I was hoping to do. And then at the time, I went into some of these orchestras to be like an extra player to replace somebody who was taking a bit of time off. And I was just kind of seduced by just how exciting it was, and it kind of glamorous, really. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it was, and so I thought, yeah, this is really good. And I and that's when I started thinking about maybe trying to do, trying to get a job of some sort.
Brilliant. And oh my God, I just slipped my mind there just for a second. Sorry.
That's okay.
But that's it. So you mentioned briefly earlier about kind of the roles as a leader. But as you're leader now of BBC Symphony Orchestra, what kind of roles are included in your position as leader? What's involved exactly?
A lot of stuff actually. It's so obviously you're the first violinist, so you have to play violin solos
Hmm.
in the music. You have to tune the orchestra. You are responsible for discipline in the orchestra. So if somebody's talking too much, then you have to
Mm.
nicely point out that they're talking too much, whatever. Um, you are responsible for recruiting new members. So you sit on audition panels. What else? I suppose the most important thing is you're a link. You're the main link between the conductor and the orchestra.
Mm.
Um, and and so you some of that is by dialogue. So the conductor will say something to you, and you will pass it back to other people. And some of it is like a physical thing, which is if you go to a classical music concert with an orchestra, you see the person, the lady or the man sitting in the first violin seat. They will be moving around, kind of physically, probably more than anybody else, and they'd be sort of indicating stuff with their instruments and all that kind of thing. And so that's the other way of communicating from the conductor to the orchestra. You're showing with physical movements what you think the conductor is asking.
Okay, so there's a lot involved in it, isn't it, as a leader?
Yeah,
Huge
it
amount
is.
involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about if people say I'm talking, for instance. I mean, I have to say nicely, so can you stop talking? I mean, have you ever got to that period where you had to get slightly angry at someone, say, look, you're talking way too much, they're not paying attention. Please just try your best now.
Yes, I mean, I've over the years I've found that I used to get kind of quite irritable, but I found that the kind of if you're going to give anybody a dressing down, that it's best not to do it in front of other
Mm.
people. It's best to kind of take them somewhere private and do it like that, because if you do it in front of everybody else, it's kind of humiliating for them,
Hmm.
and also it can often make them more kind of stroppy than they would have been, because you know everybody's listening, so they stand up for themselves more.
Mm.
So it's not a productive way to do it, I
Mm.
don't think.
And I know, I believe you were on the Conducting Vision podcast where you mentioned that one of the most difficult things is to make sure that the whole orchestra is performs as one single entity, because you mentioned about this sometimes 75, 80 members, sometimes maybe even more than that. And obviously you mentioned the roles as a leader. How do you make sure that everyone does perform as one single entity and unity and it all playing as well as they could be as one single orchestra?
Well, it's not very easy, but you're helped by, first of all, by the conductor. Obviously has a big role to in that. If the conductor's good, then you're already halfway there. If the orchestra's good, then most orchestras can play on their own, even without a conductor. They can pretty much play together and sound pretty good. So all those things help, and you're really just there to pick up on hopefully just tiny little things, which maybe the conductor hasn't probably has spotted, but has decided not to mention or whatever.
Okay. And you mentioned about the auditions lead as well.
Yeah.
As a lead as well, do you have a hand in the kind of auditions of who could join the orchestra?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the process that you look for, and the kind of quality that you look for in a member? Do you look for someone who's already obviously ready made, they can like slot right in, or do you see potential someone that can come in and learn as much? What kind of things you look for in someone, and also what are the processes that you take in order for someone to join the orchestra?
Yeah. So there'd be a panel of kind of 4 or 5 people, and the person would come along to the audition. They all have pretty much the same thing to play. So they play 2 different concertos as it happens, or portions of the concerto, and then they will have been given some what we call prepared excerpts, which are from orchestral music, kind of like the difficult bits. So then they will play them. If that all goes well, then they'll be given sight reading. So and then if they get through all that, then and they do well, then they'd be put on trial in the orchestra. So that would mean doing rehearsals, doing concerts, being moved around whatever section they're in, so that all the section members can have a chance to encounter them. And that trial can last anything from like 3 months to, I've known trials that have lasted up to 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is not ideal, obviously, for
to ask actually, yeah. Is there a reason why they could last for say 2 years? Is that to really make sure that they're able to kind of coexist and merge wherever they're needed, or is just a really what is the reason behind maybe a potentially 2-year trial period?
Well, I think it's not generally because people can't make up their minds. It could be for instance, it would be something like we've just had, where something like all the lockdowns have happened, we haven't been able to play, so it could be something like that. It often is the fact that these people are also busy, and they have to earn a living. They have families, they have mortgages, so they can't come in for the bits of work that we want them to come in for. So it can stretch out quite a long time just with pragmatic stuff like that, really.
Have you ever come across anyone who might not have got the position after such a long period, and you've had to kind of consolidate them and let them know that obviously they get the position and they've been really upset at the situation?
Yes, is the short answer. But I've also had to tell people when they've done a short trial and they haven't got anywhere. So I'm not sure. In the end, it's disappointing for them, whether it's short or long, I think. And they get paid for, obviously they get paid for all the work they do. So at least there's that.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. And obviously other things are different now, obviously through what's been happening about the world. But before everything was kind of locked down, in terms of, we kind of mentioned this earlier as well, in terms of practice rehearsals, depending on what kind of things were happening, how long on average were you performing as a group, as an orchestra? Was it like an all day session, or was it say, a few hours here and there as much as possible?
Before COVID.
Before COVID, yeah.
Yeah, before COVID. No, I mean it's basically 5 days a week over the year, and for me, I do other stuff as well. So I probably won't do 5 days a week with the BBC. I do less, and and do my work outside the orchestra as well. So it can be pretty much continuous, really.
And when you were rehearsing as well, did you aim to perform with as many members of the orchestra as possible for each rehearsal, or did you kind of break them down into smaller segments, say the woodwind section with the percussion, and then the string section by itself, and then towards the end of, say, or near the performance date, you would bring everyone together? What were the kind of processes that you took in that sense?
It depends on the music you're playing. If it's very complicated, often I think if it's contemporary music, which has just been written, can be very complicated. So yeah, we will break it down into sections. So we have a string section rehearsal, woodwind and brass normally, and percussion on their own. So yeah, definitely do that when it's needed to do that.
Okay. And as the role of a lead as well, we kind of mentioned this briefly earlier, but with the BBC Symphony Orchestra, do you also have a say in what is performed as well? Say, for instance, if you're not playing as much Shostakovich this year, let's play some of that, or more Chopin or more Mozart. Do you have a kind of say in that sense of what happens at the BBC Symphony Orchestra?
I don't. We don't have an official role in that, but yeah, I mean, certainly one can suggest things. If you're doing a solo piece, for instance, like a concerto or something with the orchestra, then you must definitely suggest what you would like to do, and then they either tell you to get lost or say yeah.